The Yamaha R15 bikes have always been that product which has brought the sports bike experience at a much affordable cost to the common folk. And that is perhaps why they have been so famous over the course of the past 10 years. And now we have the Yamaha R15 version 3.0, and with it come a lot of changes in terms of the engine, in terms of how it looks, and a lot more. We rode it on the MMRT in Chennai a while back, and I would recommend that you go back and watch that video, because that talks about performance, mostly how it performs on the track, if it is a true sports bike. But what happens when you bring it out in the city? Does it survive the concrete jungle? Is it practical and still sporty? We find out in this video. If an aggressive and suave looking sports bike is what you are looking for, then the R15 v3 will be the product for you, because it takes on its design cues from its elder and much powerful siblings. It is evident in these vents right here on the fuel tank, in how the fuel tank itself is quite muscular and has a flat top. But sadly, what it does not take on from its elder siblings is the fit and finish and the quality. These are all plastic panels, and considering the price premium that you're paying for this bike, I feel that Yamaha could have bolted on some better materials and finished it a little better than they have. But that does not take away the fact that still this bike looks really enticing. The front is lined with LED headlamps, complete with a ram air intake and a large cowl to give it that authentic sports bike look. But my only problem is that these LED headlamps, while they're pretty intense in the beam that they throw, the spread is not as much as I would have liked. It's a very concentrated spot on the road that you can see, and even if you switch to high beam, the light does not spill over as much as I would have liked it to. This is clearly not a bike that you would want to be on when you're stuck in traffic, because it has a very committed riding position, and that is a given considering its sporty nature. The seat height has gone up to 815 mm, while the clip-on handlebars are just a tad bit lower, which means you have a lot of weight on your hands and wrists. So if you are stuck in traffic for a prolonged period, then your wrists, forearm and neck might pain. So you have to remember that when you buy this bike. But I think a lot of people know that already, and they'll go for it nonetheless, because they are looking for a certain riding experience that can only be offered by a bike with such commitment towards being a true sports bike. I'm quite satisfied with the finish of all the switches, and they're quite easy to reach except for the pass light. I wish that either the switch would have been placed a little lower, or if there was a trigger at the front for easier access.
As explained in the track test, the instrument panel is plenty functional, but the quality of the panel could be improved. It packs lots of information, including speed, 2 trip meters, fuel level and much more, but the gear position and shift indicators are greatly appreciated in daily usage.
The slightly bigger 155cc liquid-cooled single-cylinder motor is a performer, and I know that from my track experience. This thing just flies if you give it some space. The gears on the 6-speed gearbox slot in so effortlessly and with such a satisfying click that you just want to keep shifting, and you get to do that because the gearing is actually quite short, so you reach the 4th gear in no time. But that does not mean that this bike is a pain and that you have to constantly shift gears, because the engine has been tuned so well that even when you are at about 40 km an hour in the 6th gear, the bike can keep on cruising and you don't really feel like downshifting. So you can pretty much cruise on the higher gears in the city streets. The slipper clutch helps when you want to shift gears quickly, and it also makes the clutch very light, and it's quite easy to pull, and you find yourself really admiring that when you are stuck in traffic, when you are navigating through crowded city streets and you have to keep your hand on the clutch lever. Peak power of 19 horsepower and 15 Newton meters of torque come in quite late in the RPM band, but that does not mean that this bike is a slouch in the lower revs. Yamaha has employed variable valve actuation, or VVA, for better response in the lower range as well as when you are high up and pulling the accelerator full on. What this basically means is that there are two cam profiles and they switch at 7400 RPM. So below 7400 RPM it is going to have a lot of grunt, and when you pull the accelerator obviously you will have maximum performance at your disposal. I did feel some vibrations in the foot pegs at about 5000 to 6000 RPM, but other than that the engine is quite refined and smooth. I have been riding this bike in the city for a couple of days and I've been getting close to 45 kmpl, which is pretty good because I've been riding in a very balanced manner, which means that I have been pulling the accelerator when I get the space to do so and feeling every rotation and every pulse that the bike produces, and also been negotiating through traffic. If you do take it on highways and if you are riding more carefully, then you can see an improvement in that figure as well. Both the disc brakes at the front and at the rear pack in quite a lot of bite and have a surprisingly high amount of progression despite missing out on ABS. But I still would have liked to see ABS on this bike because it can go fast, and when you're going through city streets they can be full of surprises, some being really fatal, and should you encounter one then things might get a bit tricky. The wheels might lock up, and if I really have any major issue with this bike then that would be the absence of ABS. The overall feel of the suspension is quite stiff, and that is for a good reason, and that also means that city roads can be a bit harsh, but you buy these bikes knowing that. But I still feel that it does absorb a good amount of shocks and undulations if you go over them slowly and tread carefully. But yes, the harsher bumps, the sharper speed breakers, they will be a bit of a problem for your back.
The bike that we got on the track was fitted with the Metzeler tire at the rear, but you get MRF tires as standard. I'm glad to report that they impress with their grip and capabilities when riding through the city.
When you look at all the 150cc bikes present in the Indian market as of today, this is the bike that will give you the most exhilarating and the most exciting performance of them all. It is mated to a very slick 6-speed transmission and even offers agile handling. But at 1.27 lakh rupees ex-showroom Delhi, it is a tad bit heavy on the pocket. Making matters worse is the fact that you can get some really nice city-oriented 200cc bikes for the same price. However, if you are looking for a bike that is suited for track days and if you're just starting out and are learning racing, then this is your best bet. This can be tamed relatively easily and still offers very good performance on the track. The drawbacks that I mentioned, like the committed riding position and the stiff suspension, do not matter on a racetrack as much as they do in city roads. The only thing that I really feel it misses out on is ABS. Had that been there, it would have just made this bike perfect. So that's all we found out from the experience that we had with the Yamaha R15 v3 in the city. If you liked what we reported, make sure you hit like. If you still have got any questions, then comment them down below. We'll try to answer them. Lastly, if you have not subscribed to our channel, if you're new to the channel, if this is your first video that you've seen, make sure that you subscribe because we keep on putting out more great automotive content on this channel. Until the next time, ride safe and drive safe. Bye-bye.